Good morning, our esteemed panelists, invited guests. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Linda St. Wafo. I'm the Chief Enterprise Business Officer for MTN, and I'm very glad to be your host today. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome you to the very first masterclass in a series of masterclasses that we have carefully curated for the Revv program. Yesterday, we officially launched the Revv program, which simply means rev up the engines of your business and veer onto the path to growth through digital inclusion. Revv is an MTN's Give Back initiative, and it is aimed at supporting and enabling SMEs to relearn, to rethink, and to retool their businesses for growth during this very difficult and challenging period, and also in the aftermath of the pandemic. The program consists of series of business-related master classes, like the one we have today. It also consists of marketing and technology support, as well as advisory services, all specifically designed for SMEs. A major highlight of the Revv program is the Yellow 200. The Yellow 200 are 200 SMEs that will exclusively enjoy access to technology tools and productivity solutions from MTN and MTN partners at no cost for a period of 6 months. Now, I know the big question on everyone's mind is how will these 200 be selected? The Yellow 200 selection will be based on attendance at the master classes, responses to polls during these master classes, among other criteria. We are working with a very well-renowned auditing firm to ensure transparency, fairness, and even distribution. I trust that you all will strive to be among this select group, which we will name at the end of the program in October this year. Beyond this, every week, we will be showcasing SMEs across MTN social media platforms. This is our way of giving SMEs visibility and creating awareness for their businesses. So there's a lot in store for SMEs in this program. Now we have decided to offer our masterclasses with all the important topic of funding. Funding has always been a critical issue for SMEs and was a hot topic in our launch session yesterday, where we looked at a number of burning issues affecting SMEs. What funds are available to SMEs in Nigeria today? How does one access these funds? Which organizations have special loans and grants for SMEs? These are familiar questions and valid questions we are happy to provide answers to here today. It's now time for me to introduce our moderator for the day, Ugodre Obi-Chukwu. Ugodre Obi-Chukwu is the founder and partner at Nairametrics Financial Advocates, owners of nairametrics.com. He is also the Chief Marketing Officer at Ikeja Electric Distribution Company, IKEDC. He is a chartered accountant with over 18 years experience in corporate finance, treasury, financial management, corporate strategy, and marketing. He has vast experience in the acquisition and turnaround of privatized government enterprises. Ugodre has special interest in personal finance, investing in financial analysis, supporting this passion through Nairametrics, Nigeria's leading financial literacy and business news website. He has written thousands of articles over the years covering financial analysis, financial literacy, and economic commentary. Ugodre, you are most welcome today. I will now hand over to you for our session today. Thank you all once again for being here, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I don't think I've had that kind of introduction before. Thank you so much. So welcome Lagos, welcome Nigeria, wherever it is that you're logging in from. Welcome to this amazing session. I believe everyone is going to have an engaging time. If you're an SME owner or somebody who is looking to get into the SME space, I think you want to make sure that you have your digital pen and digital paper, or if you're an old school guy, make sure you have your pen and paper beside you. And because there's going to be a lot of nuggets that we're going to share here today, we're also going to be putting up opinion polls, so make sure you participate, because that is also going to pave the way for you to be part of it, to also get a lot of benefits from attending this very important program. So the Revv program basically is targeted at the SMEs, just as Lindia has very well articulated. And if you ask any SME owner out there, what is that thing that is very important to you? It's typically funding. Funding is that thing that all SME owners typically want and look for. So typically, when you talk about SME and funding, you're always listening to the financial advisors out there, people who tell you how to get money or how to go about writing application for loans and blah blah blah. But it's not all the time you get to speak to the people who actually give out this money. These are the important people, like the guys who actually approve these loans, like who disburse it. So getting to speak to them on this show is just an amazing privilege. Well, at least for me, because then you also get to hear them directly. I'm also an SME owner. I own an SME. So, and funding is very important to me too. So I'm going to be listening carefully, even though I'm going to be asking a lot of the questions to what they have to say. And by the way, it's not a one-track event. If you've got questions, just go right into the Q&A section you have there right in front of you on the Zoom portal, and then type in your questions. We might not take all questions, but rest assured, we'll take as many as we can over this 1.5 hour to 2 hour session. So we're going to get right into it. We have amazing people on this show. I think I should just introduce every single person, and then we'll now go right straight into the question. So we have Moderator Kadri. Moderator Kadri is the CFO of MTN Nigeria. Very, very happy to have you, Sarah. Thanks for joining this session. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot we're going to learn from you. We also have Caroline Oyedeji. Caroline is the Executive Director of for Commercial Banking Division for Ecobank Nigeria. That's a Pan-African bank. So if you've got businesses and you're looking to expand around Africa, I mean, this is the kind of bank that you want to be talking to as well, because they have that experience and she's going to be sharing with us as well. We also have Mr. Shekarau D. Omar. He's the ED SME banking for Bank of Industry. I mean, that's the bank that supports SMEs and media and even large scale industries in this country. So you're going to be hearing from him directly. So all those BOI loans that you hear about and you say, I haven't gotten it yet, how am I going to get BOI loan? He's right here. He's going to tell you what you need to do. We also have Chidi Ileka. Chidi Ileka is the Chief Transformation Officer for and head of SME banking for Union Bank as well, one of the oldest banks in Nigeria. He's also going to be sharing useful nuggets. Union Bank is very good with agri-related loans, and they've been supporting SMEs for years. So you're also going to hear from him in this program. And then last but not the least, my very good friend, serial entrepreneur. Like, this is some guy who has created amazing businesses in this country already. Iyolua Aboyeji, he's also on this show. He's currently the general partner and co-founder of Future Africa. So he's also going to be taking your questions. If you're looking to, you're looking at coming up or starting up that new big business that you've got this crazy idea that will change the world, and you're figuring out, how do I go about it? How do I start from, bootstrapping and all the way to raising big money, all those $1 million funding that you're seeing, Series A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. He is right here and he's going to get us through it. So I think we just start right away. Modipe, I think I'm going to come to you first. Right? So, and right now, let's start first from what financial planning, right? Because SMEs need financial planning, and it's pretty important. If you don't have the right financial planning in place, I think it's going to be difficult for you to raise money. I mean, I've been through that route before. So in terms of financial planning, what are those top 10 tips? I mean, you don't have to go all the way to 10, but what are those key things that small businesses out there need to do to attract funding? The guys that will give them the funding are here. So let's start with what they need to do, because your experience, I mean, you're a CFO of one of the biggest companies in Nigeria. So you know what it is to attract funding. So let our listeners hear. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I think nice question that has been asked. And I often tell people that it doesn't matter the scale of the business, big or small. There are some basic things you need to do even if you're an SME. So I would say that starting point is that you should have clear business goals. And these business goals needs to be separated from your personal goals. See, most of the challenges businesses face is that there's always a thin line between business-related objectives and your personal objectives. As a matter of fact, it's so blurred, people just feel that given the scale of their business, it's one and the same. Now, from where I sit, excuse me, from where I sit, I think it's important that you have that separation from the onset, have that discipline, so that you would know that as you're growing your businesses, you would be able to separate. There's no harm in rewarding yourself, but reward yourself on a constructive basis. Do not, deplete whatever funds you have. The second thing that is important is, okay, you have to think about, your funding. How are you going to get your funding? There are different funds out there, and like has been said severally, and I usually tell those, that I give advice on a personal basis that funding cannot be your problem, and that's I take it from it. Funding will never be a problem if your idea is robust enough and you're able to pitch it properly. And to do that, you need to start with the first tip I gave you, which is have a clear business plan and where you set out your goals with that. Two, another point that you need to keep track of is also, as your business is growing, how are you tracking your revenue generation? How are you tracking your growth? You see, there's a difference between revenue and profits. See, the two are not the same. And maybe I might add that you should go through some basic.
I think Moderator seems to be having small challenges with his setup. So we will come back to him. But while we're trying to sort that technical issue out, he's mentioned three things that I think is very important here. You got to have clear business goals, very, very important. And funny enough, I've been chartered accountant for years. I never really have thought of it this way. Separate your business goals from your personal goals, because sometimes when you're starting a business, your personal goal basically might be just to earn some salary or to earn some extra side money, to take care of your immediate needs. But your business goals might be different. Your business goals might be, maybe you want to change the world, or change the way things are done, or to be a market leader somewhere, or in one activity. And then he also talks about how you get your funding. It's very, very important. What you do to actually get this funding. And then thirdly, you got to be able to track, you got to be able to understand the difference between revenue and profit. Very, very important. And I've often told people about that. Completely different things. In fact, you can actually go on for years in your business without a single profit, right? And not because you don't want to be profitable, but because you're investing a lot of your profits back in your business, right? So your expenses is high. Maybe you're spending a lot on marketing so that you can continue to scale. But where you're not making enough profits, you gotta be able to increase your revenue considerably. So we're going to go next to you, Carol. I think that this is, one good segue from what Moderator was basically explaining. And then Moderator comes back, of course, we'll go back to him. So Carol, I mean, you've been in this SME space for years. You're super experienced. How does a business owner, right? How does a business owner equip himself or herself on how to get loans approved? Because that's where they sort of struggle sometimes. You're not sure whether you need to write lengthy letters, write short letters, very specific things that people want to see in, like you want to see in loan applications, that when you see it, you're like, I like this. This is a good deal. So maybe just help some of our participants understand this from your own perspective.
All right. Thank you, Godre, and good morning, everyone. Now, let me probably start from the perspective of SMEs. Now, as SMEs, we need to understand our businesses very well and be able to demonstrate capability in managing the affairs of our companies. Whether we like it or not, banks, all banks, including us in Ecobank, we often look out for strong managerial skills in any business willing to borrow. This may be through maybe things like years of experience or records showing that the business has been selling well. So a bit similar to what Mr. Moderator had said earlier about the ability to be able to sort of generate some good returns. Now, also how the loan request is presented matters. Where a business has been keeping good records and is able to show these as a proof for a borrowing need really helps. So the bank statements are important, sales receipt, all those things are pretty important for the SMEs to keep in their records. SMEs need to also need to be registered, properly registered. So even if you are a one-man concern, try and still have some business registration because it helps build credibility for the business in trying to access a loan. Now, SMEs can demonstrate a good return of the money against what is put into it. So let me explain that. So a bank would typically say something like a positive cash flow. And I don't want to use jargon here. But where you can demonstrate that you actually get more money out of the business than what you put into it is also a very good sign for a bank. Now, credit history also is important. As an SME, you cannot default in a loan obligation in another financial institution and you want to borrow in another bank. It's not possible. Most lending institutions today register bad loans in a credit bureau. So if you have that record against your name, you're not likely to be able to access funding anywhere. Then, people always talk about collateral, how difficult it is for SMEs to get collateral. While collateral is somewhat important, priority is actually placed on what the loan purpose is for. So for an SME, being able to present and showcase and articulate a loan, request properly helps. That loan purpose and the cash flow, as earlier said, are very important. I say that because by regulations, banks cannot even give out loans without collateral. It's however recognized that most SMEs do not have such primary collateral like land, property, and so on. That is why the CBN actually set up what you call the collateral registry. Here, banks can opt to register, movable assets or personal properties to support, MSMEs and so forth. In summary, well, banks will look out for things like experience of the person running the business, how he or she sort of presents his case with clear records and documents, strong cash flow, credit history, collateral, amongst a few others. That will typically help in making that financial decision to be able to advance a loan to an SME. Thank you very much, Hugo.
Thanks so much, Carol. I think those are very, very important nuggets. I also took notes here. And if I can recap for some of the participants here, you got to have strong managerial skills. Very, very, very important. Nobody's going to give money to someone or to an organization that doesn't have good managerial skills. Even you're not going to give your money to anybody who doesn't have good managerial skills. And then how your loan request is presented is also very important. I mean, you want to write it clean English, no shelling, make sure that you're straight to the point, explain what exactly you want to do with that money, how you intend to repay it. Very, very important. And then SME should also be properly registered. I mean, you're not going to go there as Ugo and Sons these days and you're saying you're looking for 20 million and wondering where are you registered, where can you be found. So, and I think with the new CAMA, these things are a lot easier. You can register companies easily now. And also, avoid having bad credit. Not good for you. Carol has basically told you now. So avoid credit. When you borrow money, make sure you repay it. Because if you don't repay it, there's a credit bureau that's going to be watching you. And what that means is that if you don't repay it, nobody's ever going to give you a loan. And then these days, if you're owing, they can actually set your money off from any bank in Nigeria. So that is also there. So you got to be very careful too. And then collateral, a lot of people complain about it, but anything can be a collateral, really. Depends on how much value the bank ascribes to that asset. And then with the collateral registry, these things are pretty much easy. And then you got to have experience in running business as well. Even if you're a new guy in your business, experience isn't really all about the number of years. It's really how good you know the product or the business. That's what banks, when they hear you speak about the business and they see that you're very knowledgeable about it, they really love that. So amazing nuggets from Moderator here. So I don't know if Moderator, sorry, from Carol. Moderator, are you back on now? Do we go back to you?
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry for that. I think most of the things,
some technical issues there. So fantastic. So thanks, Carol, for those nuggets. I'm going to come back to you, Carol, later. But let's go to Modukwe now. Once we're done with Modukwe, we'll move straight to Mr. Shekara. But Modukwe, go on, please.
Right, thank you. So I was talking about the difference between revenue and cash. I think also Carol kindly talked about the next point, which had to do with cash flows. That things people don't want to, you basically need to get your minds around it, because ultimately, anybody who's going to advance some facilities to you would want to see the strength of your cash flows. So there must be, liquidity and cash flow management, how you generate the income streams and how you're going to keep tight a lead on that. The same thing also applies to your costs. You want to make sure that you're not, front loading your costs with unnecessary things, or things that you will be able to unwind as you go along. Now, in terms of tips also, compliance is key. So Ugodra just talked about the new camera, and you'll find out that as the government now focuses on fiscal policy, so things that have to do with compliance are key. So I would say from the get-go, make sure you have the proper structures, set up your businesses, register them properly, be tax compliant, have your VAT registration and all those things, because ultimately the funding you are seeking, those are sort of things they want to check, because now the FARS or the Federal Revenue Services, for instance, has different ways of getting information. So they get information from all sources. So the earlier you sorted it out from the onset, it's likely that you will present yourself as a serious-minded business who would attract the right level of quality of funding. And finally, I'll also say that from the onset, also think about succession planning, or your business succession planning. Yesterday, one of the speakers did talk about something that's important for new businesses, and that's having diversity. So at times, even if you're a startup or you're a SME, you need to also have diverse ways, or different ways of looking at your business. So basically, you have to have people around you who can add to that body of knowledge. There's all these things that you will now articulate, and goes back to where I started from, having a clear business plan where you separate your business goals from your personal goals. I think I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Fantastic, Modukwe. These are very good nuggets. You heard him there. He added a few things more. Cash flow is important. Cash is the lifeline of a business. Without cash, even if you make all the profits in this world, your business will simply die. So you got to have very good cash flow. You got to be able to manage your cost very well. Compliance is very key. These days, everybody has your information. The FIRS is basically gone digital. So if you think you can avoid paying tax, no, they've also got you on lead. So you got to be able to, comply to regulatory rules. I've often told people, try and understand the regulatory, rules out there that surrounds your business. All businesses have different, regulatory compliance requirements. So try and understand what yours is, so that you can comply and avoid incurring unnecessary costs. Succession planning is also very important. I know some of us want to just be on there as CEOs forever, but sometimes you got to have succession planning, because things can happen and you got to be able to move on. And one guy that does that very well is right here. We're going to be talking to him later as well. But he's one guy that set up business, nurture the business to grow, and then he's moved on to something else. So succession planning is very good, and you can't do that if you don't have the right structures. But we're still on the issue of actually getting loans, and we're going to move to Mr. Shekara. I've been waiting to ask you this question for a while, and I'm sure a lot of our participants out here are waiting to hear from you as well. People have often wondered why it's difficult, or there's this perception that perhaps maybe it's difficult to access, BOI loans, right? I know that some people have been able to do it. I know a few people have gotten BOI loans, but people kind of think that there's this, shroud around it, and maybe if you apply, they're not going to listen to me. How does it work? What do you need to get BOI loans? You're the man in charge of that desk, so let them hear from you directly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians, and all those that are interested in discussing this issue. But most importantly, good morning, courageous SMEs, because you need a lot of courage to be in that field. honestly. It's a very simple question. And you've already provided the answers in the sense that if people have been listening to Carol and Modipe, and then the points you were able to pick, then it is very easy for them to get BOI loans. The truth is, we need to understand one or two things. And the first thing for us to understand is that these funds are limited. BOI, agreed, is a government bank established to assist in industrial development, most importantly, support the private sector, support those that are in manufacturing. But the fact remains that these funds are limited. And therefore, for you to have access to these funds, you must be ready to face the challenges of today. What are the challenges of today? Are you yourself organized? Are you organized enough to compete with others in getting these limited funds? In terms of, do you have a registered company? It's now a going concern. Do you have the regulatory licenses that are required? If you are producing food items, for example, you will need NAFDAC. So if you don't have all this, it would be crazy for anybody to give you loan because you are going to end up killing people. So these are some of the things that we need to understand. You need to have knowledge of what you are going into or what you are doing. And that is why the issue of capacity building comes in. If you don't know what you want to do, it is usually very difficult. We've had cases where people will come and they are coming with 10 different proposals. How do you give funds to someone that is thinking of doing 10 different things and he's starting, or he has started one that has failed and he wants to start another one, but there are 8 others on the line that he is also interested in doing? Okay, so people need to understand and be focused as to, this is what I want to do. I am knowledgeable in this field. And to even assist our dear SMEs, BOI has gone beyond the limits by coming into partnership with what we call BDSPs. These are business partners. We're also in partnership with SME-friendly banks like Carol's Bank, just to make sure that they are assisted. What do? We say, listen, you don't know what you want to do exactly. These are business development partners. They will assist you for a token. When your project is successful, we will pay them as an institution to make sure that these things are done properly and people come to us with loans, with requests that we can give. It's not like grants. Government give grants, but people still think, oh, everybody should get it. These grants are limited because these are sector specific. The government has seen a gap somewhere and they feel it's important, let's see if we can intervene. They are intervention funds. But the fact remains that everybody is going to apply, and it's only those that are really serious and are focused that will get it. You will apply 100 times, you will never get it because you are not prepared for it. So as long as SMEs are prepared, they have gone through what we call proper capacity building and guidance, even if it's mentoring, that will prepare them for the challenges of today. They will get all the loans that they want. We, at BOI, for example, we know the challenges of collaterals, especially for young people. And we say, listen, if you're taking between 1 to 10 million naira, you don't need to bring a house. Bring 2 guarantors and pay 10% of the amount you want. Still, people find it difficult to bring 2 guarantors. How can a Nigerian who has gone to school or otherwise, who has parents or they are late, who has brothers and sisters, who has been brought up in a particular neighborhood, tell you that I want to do this business, I'm sure about it, but I can't find 2 people to say, I will stand by this person. It is difficult to understand because we know in simple credits, they say the first funds an SME will get is money from fools. Excuse my language, but that is it. From brothers, from sisters, from friends that normally they don't even expect these funds to come back. But no, they don't have to give you money. They will just stand by you that, yes, we will guarantee this person will perform, and you can't find 2. So it's difficult. People have to really assess themselves, your own personal qualities. Are you the type that will take a loan and repay? Because the interesting about these loans is that the beauty about them is their ability to replicate themselves. If you take 1 million and you return it, another person will take 500,000, another person will take 300,000. But if everybody that takes does not return it, then it becomes an issue because these funds will get exhausted and that is it. So mainly, I think these are some of the things that we want them to do. Have proper knowledge, also regular knowledge as to what is going on in your environment. How many banks are coming with grants? The MTNs that are providing some grants to help. Do you have knowledge? It's only if you have knowledge that it's existing that you can even benefit from. If you are just sitting and you don't seek for knowledge as to who does what, it becomes an issue because you will never know about it, okay? Also, it's important for them to understand that joining associations such as MAN, NASME, NASIMA helps a lot because they help to organize them. And not only that, they are always the listening ears of government. They are also listening to what government is doing. They are also pushing. So if you belong to these associations, you'll be able to know what is going on. They'll be able to guide you. In the process, you will see those that have been in that business for 10, 20 years, and you tag along. They will give you proper mentorship, and then you can be a successful SME. I don't know if we have more time, but like I said, this is a very interesting thing. And we know they are very courageous. We have been trying to assist, but the main thing is you can only be assisted if you're able to assist yourself. Look for knowledge. MTN, Lagos Business School, Kaduna Business School, they are always coming up with all kinds of capacity building for young entrepreneurs. It helps you if you have the knowledge and then you can develop on that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to stay on you for a bit more. There's something I just want you to flog for us here, and I think is one of the most important things you said. You talked about guarantors, and I'm sure for some of the participants here, they are wondering who exactly, is a guarantor. Can it just be any guy on the street that I can just call and say, oh boy, I beg you, come, just come be guarantor. Once the money come, I'm fine, I can give you a cut. Are there people that are guarantors? Because I think it's very important for SMEs to know that there's certain people in society that are, except maybe they are just general. So maybe just help us with that, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. These are the normal people you and I meet every day in every community. You have police officers, you have military officers, you have school principals, you have civil servants up to certain level. We have consistently been reviewing it to bring, we were saying assistant director. We have brought it down. We are saying manager in a bank. We have brought that down. That listen, a simple banking officer in a bank can serve as your guarantor. We are saying someone that will say, you are church leader, right? The imam, the traditional ruler in your village, okay, can serve as your guarantor. All we are saying is that, listen, we are not saying the person is going to take this loan to disappear, but there's someone that will say, I know this gentleman or I know this lady, so of good character. When he or she takes this loan, I know it is going to be for a purpose and this loan will come back, okay? Just for someone to say, I am standing by this person. I know him and I want to support him. But since I don't have the resources and I don't need to bring funds, I am saying I can stand by him that he is of good character, he is doing good business, and we want to encourage him. That's all. So the list is endless, and it's for us to keep on saying, let's review. Like I said, at one time we were saying assistant director. This was when we started. Now we have brought it down. We were saying bank manager. We know before you become a bank manager, probably you must have served for 10, 12 years or 15 years. We are saying no. A confirmed banking officer who started banking 2, 3 years ago can serve as your guarantor, because we know it's not the funds, it's the character of the person and the fact that someone responsible has agreed to stand by you. I hope I've answered.
Fantastic, sir. I think these are very, you basically just explained this very well now. So it's pretty clear to some of us who the kind of guarantors you're looking for. So it's not just a random guy on the street who's not got a job. It's got to be somebody who is representative in society. So it's either a leader in a religious organization, or you've got a very good job and you're a leader in a team in a job. So it's got to be somebody who is important, somebody that at least has a responsibility. That's really what it is. So for you SMEs, look, you don't need to go and get the president to guarantee you, or some billionaire. It can be just anyone, but it's got to be somebody who has a sense of responsibility in an organization, either private, public, or religious. All right, so we're going to switch this up a little bit now, and we've been talking a little bit about bank, SME funding from the point of view of banks. We will get back to that later, but there's a different kind of funding again, and that's equity. Equity is a different kind of funding, because you have equity, you have bank, you even have grants as another kind of funding. So, but we're going to switch to equity now. And if there's one guy who really knows how to source equity for SMEs, it's Ian. So we're going to come to you, Ian. You've heard a lot about, getting loans from the point of view of banks. So for you, as a veteran especially in the technology space, how exactly can investment firms, what exactly do investment firms look for in the kind of companies that they want to invest in? Because you have a lot of SMEs here now, and they have different things that they're doing. But for your kind of organization, where you've got your seed capital and you're looking for amazing companies you can put that money in, what do you look for? What is that thing that is important to you, so that these guys here can go and start doing their homework?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on here. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Fantastic. So when we think about equity, primarily in technology and creative ventures, we're primarily securing a few interesting assets, which are very different from, say, other kinds of ventures. One of them is data. One of them is IP. The other thing that we're trying to secure is usually like what I would call proprietary rights or proprietary process. So really very much centered around data and IP. And so it requires us to think very differently about the way we go about these things. So one of the key elements for the kind of businesses that we're looking for are businesses that enable other businesses. So I'm going to use very popular examples of businesses that we've backed or been part of in the past. Say, for example, Flutterwave. Flutterwave is a business that we backed and operated from 2016. And the big thing that we were looking for with Flutterwave was basically how does this enable other businesses to do a great job? And then how do you capture value from the payment? So just to give you a sense, the problem that Flutterwave was trying to solve was businesses wanted to be able to accept multiple different kinds of payments. They didn't have the resources to engage each payment provider individually, and they needed somebody to give them a one-stop shop solution where if I plug this into my website or put it in my shop, I'll be able to accept whatever payment method, whether it's MTN mobile money or MasterCard and Visa, that my customer comes to the shop with. And so for us, what we were looking at was what problem does this company solve, and how does it enable particularly other businesses or other individuals to do whatever it is they need to do. And we're often really happy to invest in that IP because we know that it's easily scalable, and we know that it can be leveraged multiple different times. The second element that SMEs that are looking for equity funding have to keep in mind is really in terms of how they are structured. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of companies that we've invested in, we've had to work through a foreign domiciled parent entity just because they seem much safer for equity investments. But different investors have different areas of focus. in that respect. However, it's important for you to get the right advice around the way you're structured so that it's easy for your investors to be able to retrieve their capital when you sell ultimately, because that's how equity investors make their money. You have to be able to sell your stock to somebody else in order for us to make our money. So we've taken a preference to structures where transfer of ownership is a bit easier, like in the US or Mauritius. But I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I've seen successful Nigerian companies manage equity, but the corporate governance is particularly important in this instance because if you don't have properly documented board of governors, board of directors meeting minutes, you don't have corporate meeting minute books, you don't have a reputable secretary handling your affairs, we really don't have the flexibility that one might have with a debt relationship, where all that matters is that we see our money. The value of the corporate entity itself is particularly important. Things like doing your regular audits become extremely important for us, even in this respect, right? Because of what we're investing in. I'm also thinking carefully about brand and IP is very important. So we encourage our companies to file trademarks very early.
Just to be clear, when you say IP, do you mean intellectual property?
Intellectual property, yes, right. Please forgive me. Intellectual property. So your brand rights have to be very clear. You have to be filing patents regularly. All those things constitute significant IP that would enable you to be an attractive sale ultimately. And then finally, you know, one thing that has changed in our thinking, say over the last 4 years, about where we want, as we talk to SMEs that want equity investment from us, is where their market focus is. We're increasingly excited by companies that are looking at global revenue sources, i.e. dollar, as opposed to people that are already focused on the local market, just because the economics make more sense for us. So it's always important for you to have a global plan for your business. If your business is a Nigerian local champion, it's very difficult for us in many instances to see a clear path to exit with your business. And so we encourage more and more of the businesses we back to try and take a global view. And also, you know, in doing so, try and grow as quickly as possible, so that we can retrieve our returns on equity as quickly as possible as well. So I don't know if that's helpful context.
Fantastic, fantastic. Excuse me, fantastic. You know what's interesting? Listening to you, he didn't even mention anything about your financials or whether you need to be profitable. He's basically looking for a business that tells a great story that also shows him a path to recovering his money and as well scaling, like how does his, whether it's $100,000 or $50,000 or $1 million, get to $10 million when he wants to leave, or $5 million? How does your business grow from just in one little room to across Africa? I mean, that's basically what he's willing to hear if you're an SME. But yeah, I want to put you on the spot on something. I'm going to go a little off script though. So you've got some people who have often wondered why, you know, like funding from all this, when you hear people getting $1 million seed funding or $500,000 seed funding, do you have to have any kind of exposure? Maybe you went to a foreign university somewhere, you know, or maybe you belong to some kind of circle that is, you know, that has influence. Or can any random guy who's just very intelligent and got a big idea, can that person get funding from your kind of organization if they meet this criteria that you listed now?
So I'll be very honest with you. It's not as meritocratic as debt. Okay. Equity is a very different instrument. With debt, I mean, you're primarily looking at the business itself and its cash flows, and you have multiple ways of recovering your money. equity is at its very heart a trust business. You know, so I have to be able to trust you as a person before giving you equity, because the reality is that I go down with you if anything bad happens, and I have to have made certain fiduciary. I have a fiduciary responsibility to be able to say, I trust you, so this is why I'm going to give you this equity. So in terms of how to break into that space, typically the easiest way to break in is to work with other people who have received equity before. Most times I will take referrals from startup founders who I have backed before and who have given me back some return far more seriously than just a random person who sent me an email or something of that sort. It is that kind. It's really about the schools. It's a lot about the experience. Unfortunately, certain kinds of exposure make it easier for you to be able to be referred by somebody we've backed before. But I don't think it's necessary in all cases. In actual fact, we did an analysis of our own portfolio, and we realized that we're actually more likely to invest in somebody who's worked for a company that we've backed before, or who's worked with a founder that we've backed before, than we had to back somebody who's been in a foreign university. So I think it's different strokes for different folks. We don't particularly look at education as a huge proxy. A better reference is basically working in a venture-backed startup before is a big one. So if you think, I mean, many of the business owners may not necessarily be in that position, but one thing that we've also seen emerging, we ask all our companies, what tools are you finding useful that you're using? Every month we send out a survey where we ask all our companies, and many companies have been referred to us that way, and we go and chase down those companies. Also ask big companies, what tools are you using that you're finding useful? What technology tools? And then we go and chase down those companies as well. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be as a result of going to the same schools, but definitely being in the same network helps a ton.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for those useful nuggets. I thought that I just asked that question because a lot of people seem to miss that point a lot. We're gonna go back into banking. I'm gonna come back to you later, Ian, so just make sure that you're on standby. I'm gonna go now to Chidi Ileka of Union Bank. Chidi, there are numerous impressions about commercial loans being too expensive, for SMEs. They claim that the interest is killing them, it's crushing, so they don't want to go in there at all. But I do know that these days, especially commercial banks, they have different kind of products that are tailor-made for SMEs. So let's address this interest and expensive connotation that people have about SME loans. For you, do you think SME loans are expensive? And even if they are not, or even if they are, how do banks basically determine who to give loans to, especially when you're trying to marry your cost of funds and excuse me, and the kind of returns that you can get from those loans? Chidi.
Okay, thanks, Ugodre, and good morning, everyone. Yes, I will agree that to some extent, interest rate is high in the country, especially when we begin to compare with so many other jurisdictions. But there's a reason why that is so. The interest rate on loans is usually a function of two things. The risk-free rate, in simple terms, the treasury bill rate, which is the rate at which we lend to government, and then what you can call the premium. And this premium is one of the reasons why okay, so let me put it this way. The treasury bill rate is what it is. And then the premium is a reflection of the risk that is peculiar to the business that is borrowing money. And I think everybody in a way made this simple because all the things that everybody has talked about is around, basic business hygiene, things around corporate governance, things around keeping records, things around, credit history, simple things like identification. So when these things are in place and the strength of the management is there and the track record is there, then the bank is able to price the premium. And the more the industry is able to price this premium, over time, the price will come down. So, but for now, because of the difficulties in pricing premium and because the treasury bill rates are high, you tend to see high interest rates. But having said that, we've also seen situations where, people go and take loans at very high interest rates, 4% per month, and they do well and return the money. Sure. And people take loans at single-digit interest rate and they still default, right? So I think it's a bit more to do with, this thing of knowing exactly why you need a loan, knowing the returns that will come from the business, and that these returns will cover the cost of the loan, and therefore that it makes sense to take it, right? I think SMEs should learn how to do this analysis. Also learn not to come to the banks to look for startup loans. Like Inyi was saying, what is proper at that time is equity. Raise money from family and friends, build a track record so you can demonstrate to the bank that yes, this business can stay on its own and pay the debt. When you do that, banks are looking for people to lend money to. One of the simple ways to bring it home is this. If as a bank you lend money to a group of SMEs and the default rate is at 20%, then it doesn't make sense for you to lend at anything less than 20%. So the responsibilities are two ways. SMEs should continue to try to do well on the loans that are the loans given to them, so that the NPL, as it trends down, will affect the price at which they get money. On our own part as banks, if you notice over the last 10, 15 years, almost every bank in this industry is doing something about SMEs. It's something that all the banks are trying to crack open, right? On our part, we are continuing to learn, and those two will come together over time to make sure that the rates come down. Thank you.
All right, Chidi. I like the way you basically, put this together. Treasury bills rate plus premium. And I also like the context you put in here. It's not really about the rate sometimes, because, and you're right, you've seen people who borrow at 5% per month and then they do pay, because it's all about cash flow and what you actually need that money for, right? So for example, if you're looking for money to fund an LPO and you know that they'll always pay you after 60 days, then you can always, take it a 1 month or 2 month facility, and you're very, very sure that you pay that loan. But if you're taking a 1 year loan for a business that's going to take 2 or 3 years to mature, you've got a mismatch there, and you're going to find it difficult to get that money back. But there's something else SMEs say that they're very worried about, Chidi, and they complain that banks don't, wait, or they're very impatient. They don't want to see SMEs grow. They just give me my money. The account officer is right there banging on the guy's desk and saying, look, if you don't give my money, we're going to seize all your property or all your inventory, your stuff. So is that really true? Are you guys impatient? Because you're dressed up nicely and all that. You look like a very patient guy. But why do they think you guys are impatient? Why?
Well, we are very patient to the limit of the gift of patience we have, So let me put it this way. The structure of deposits that banks take is essentially around 1 year. The average tenor of bank deposit is 1 year. So when banks lend money, they tend to lend, we tend to lend money for a tenor of 1 year, because you're going to have a mismatch. Just like you rightly said about SMEs that may need to do a business for 3 years, and then if you give them a loan for 1 year. In fact, I've seen it happen that some SMEs come close to failing simply because they run out of runway, not because the business model is bad or is weak. That can essentially also happen to a bank if you extend yourself beyond the deposit tenor that you have. And this is the problem I think the intervention loans, were essentially set up to address. Because when intervention loans ask, as a matter of fact, banks give guarantees for customers to get intervention loans. So we take the credit risk while the money, because our deposit structure doesn't allow us to give monies for 5 years, 7 years, except we're doing very structured loans and stuff like that, right? So, but for you to even get intervention loan, just like Mr. Omar said, you need not to look good, you need to be good because you've done the business, you have the records to demonstrate that yes, this business can withstand, can take a loan of 5 years and pay it back. Then the bank will support you and you get an intervention loan. So what we focus on most times, what banks are most appropriately set up to do for SMEs today is working capital loans. Before now, we used to rely, we used to ask for, go and get your audited financials and all that. But today, we don't. We rely on statement of accounts and whatever footprints that the SME has got that we can lay our hands on, put that together, and we make a decision around how much, what tenor, but short-term loans, just for daily operations.
All right, you heard that from Chidi, guys. It's just short-term loans. Working capital basically is that money that you need to fund your daily operations. Either you need to, stock up on your inventory, or you need to pay salaries, or you need to pay for transportation, just your daily needs. And you know that there's always going to be turnover that will come in that will pay those loans. So don't go, looking for, if you're an SME, don't go looking for a loan or using a loan to pay for some long-term project that you know that the revenue is not going to come till maybe a year or two. It's purely a mismatch. And that's basically what Chidi is saying. If you're looking for that kind of funding, then it's guys like you should be looking at pitching, because people like are ready to seed money, put money in there and watch you grow. By the way, guys, we're going to be running an opinion poll pretty soon. And once you see that pop up, please, participate in it. It's very important that you participate because you stand a chance to win something. So please make sure that you just very short opinion poll, nothing too long. Feedback is very important for us here. And for the guys here, they also need this feedback as well. Q&A, we're going to get to your Q&A questions in a bit. We are also responding to some of your questions directly on the platform. Some of our panelists are also doing that as well. But we will take some of your questions. We might not be able to take everything, but we'll take some questions here as well. I'm gonna be moving. Okay, so it's not an opinion poll. Okay, so it's just a poll. All right, you can see it's just flashed on the screen. I can see it here as well. So it's not an opinion poll. It's just basically a poll trying to understand, or a few things about your needs in terms of funding. So quickly answer. So I think there are like 5 of them. I can see 5 different questions here. So please just go ahead and answer. I think it has a short period after which you won't see it again. So it's going to be up for 5 minutes exactly. 5 minutes. This poll is going to be up for 5 minutes. But while you're responding to the polls, I'm going to switch to Moderator. I'm going to come to you now as well. We've heard a lot from the banks. We've heard a lot from from the equity side of things. You and I belong to the neutral side. We're like, okay, we're the ones who basically give the advice in terms of how or what to do. With cash. But you've been your CFO. You've been in the business of managing. Either you're managing treasury or cash flow or expenses for businesses, and raising funding, because that's what this session is about. Really, it's really about raising funding. Again, just for the poll, please remember, it's very, very important. It's actually a criteria. It's a selection criteria for the yellow 200. So you don't want to miss this one. Also, please make sure that you respond to these questions. So back to you, Moderator. Are there other factors SMEs need to secure funding? Because we've heard from the banks, we've heard from the private equity guy, but are there other things like that you think? I mean, like connection, trust, relationship management. I mean, what are those things? Because sometimes we've seen people just walking with a briefcase, without any major documentation, and they really get these loans out. He sort of alluded to that a bit, because you heard him. He said, "Look, it's not necessarily the education or they've got to be able to trust." And I think that also splits between banks and equity providers as well, equity investors. So from your point of view, what are those exogenous factors that you think that, man, look, you got to have this thing if you want these guys to run, even if they don't give you loan, but at least cut down the timeline is going to take you to secure funding? I think it would be nice to hear from you on this.
Well, I think, thank you. I think there are some, what you could call some soft things or soft skills, or, on how you present your ideas. I think packaging is also important. You may have the best ideas, but you're not able to express them. So, and there's sessions like this, Masterclass and things like that, helps you, to articulate your ideas. There are some different things people will be looking at in an idea that is being pitched. So you need to be able to articulate all these things. I think, like you heard from the bankers, the bank relationship is a trust.
Can you rev up a bit, the volume a bit, so that people can hear?
Can you hear me better now?
Fantastic. Okay.
I was saying that I was talking about how to pitch your ideas. That you need to be able to articulate your ideas. You must be able to. You may have the best business proposal or business idea, but if you are not able to articulate it in a form that others will be able to, relate well with you, then you will struggle with your, getting that, be it equity or even, bank funding, as it were. So I think to a large extent, I was trying to say before you interjected that to a large extent, the bank relationship is a trust relationship. So you yourself must be somebody who is trustworthy. I think, like he also said, when you're meeting a bunch of investors or people who want to invest in your business, they don't know you from anywhere. So to a large extent, there's a little limit to the due diligence you can do. But I think it goes back to how, your value systems, as it were, what drives you, and the people around you. Unfortunately, Nigeria has been pitched as a country that is full of, whatever negative things you read about. But there are a lot of good people out there. Good people out there. You need to be able to identify them. So how would you identify them? I think it's a function of how you pitch your ideas, how you present yourself, who you associate with, and all those things. Now, this has got to do with finance, as you can see. And it is really true that people can actually walk in, meet some people, or at times I'm, in my own private times, I'm listening to what people are saying. And I say, well, why did you think about this? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Looking at it from the big corporate point of view. But the same ideas that will also, help the individuals to express themselves. So I think to a large extent, yes, you need to always have your ideas expressed, but you need to express them in a proper manner. Two, you need to be a person who's trustworthy. That is, you have a track record of, being held accountable. Again, you must be accountable. So that's why it's also important that even if you are going to pitch to the bankers, they also look at those who are around you. And that's why Mr. Shikaru was clearly saying that surely you must be able to get somebody to stand for you. I mean, how is it impossible that you want to come? I don't know you from anywhere. The people who are supposedly know you should be able to stand for you. So to a large extent, I think those are the sort of things we need to do. And three is that some of the things we need to be careful about is that it's good to want to scale our business, but don't let's do it so fast. You have to take those baby steps. Learn the rudiments of what is at. Don't look at the big picture and say, this, I want to move from 0 to 10. You want to become an MTN overnight. It's doable, but you need to go through the rudiments. You need to learn, your ropes. And through that process, you need to be disciplined. If there's any message that I have for the SMEs on this class, master class, is to learn the art of self-discipline. Because that, to a large extent, is going to be what's going to unlock all the potentials and opportunities. So many people have had these opportunities, they've misused them. They've not made the best of those opportunities. And they feel, so many people are out there also aspiring for those opportunities. And that's why you see so many people who start doing good things, things that you've not heard about, when they're able to write they're able to meet together. So I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Moderator. These are very, very incredible points you raised here. I like the way you clearly describe packaging. I used to, in fact, I'm still a fan of, I used to be, but I'm still a fan of Shark Tank. And there was one episode I was watching, and, this guy had brilliant idea, but he couldn't even, he wasn't good with the numbers. So, you know, they ask you, people like you will ask you things like, okay, so where can you grow from what to what? You know, what's your competition and what's your market size like? What's your revenue as a percent? What's your revenue as a percentage of your asset? You know, all those kind of numbers. And the guy was just staring and like, oh my God. And he didn't get that funded. So you got to be able to package yourself. You got to be able to tell that story very well. You got to know the numbers as well. And I'm very happy Moderator just basically clear this, you know, put this out clearly for us to understand. We're going to move to Carol. We've done 1 hour now. It's been an amazing 1 hour so far. Incredible nuggets. I have my notes. You can see them all filled. I've been taking notes myself because I'm learning a lot of stuff here that even we, some of us that we call ourselves financial experts, we're learning a few things here that are very, very important. I'm going to come to you, Carol. I think earlier on when Mr. Shikara was talking about, you know, SMEs and the challenges that they've been having with sort of, you know, stretching funds to them. I don't know, do you see that kind of phenomenon as well with private banking? And then what tools can SMEs use to improve their credit worthiness? Because I think, you know, he also spoke to you being credit worthy. I think Chidi also, you know, spoke about that. And then Moderator as well spoke about trust. So that's one theme that we sort of heard all through. They've got to be able to trust you. So, but then if I don't know you, how can I trust you? So some of this, you know, challenges that, you know, Shekara basically mentioned, as well as everybody has talked about trust, is that the same kind of experience that, you know, you've had with SMEs? And if yes, how can SMEs break that barrier? How can they convince you that they're creditworthy, and then you can actually give them that loan and you're pretty sure that they'll pay you back?
All right. Thanks, Ugo. I think indeed banks, like Ecobank and other commercial banks, we see some similarities, and there are additional issues with respect to the experience of SMEs in assessing, you know, financing for their businesses. Now, if you heard earlier, it's not just a debt finance, even in equity finance, right? You're trying to ensure that the person is able to demonstrate some level of commitment to the business. You would agree with me that an SME that approaches a bank or even an equity investor, right, without demonstrating some level of commitment can be some sort of red flag. So it's not that I see my neighbor doing a business, and because my neighbor is doing very well, it will sit, I will do extremely well in that business. So some level of commitment and knowledge about it is very important. Then SMEs need to understand how to organize and present their company and the required financing, because that presentation is critical to how well, you understand, you can judge, you know, whether that SME is capable of really delivering on the commitment they've made towards that SME. Then I talked earlier about the fact that it's important that small businesses, you know, register with relevant authorities like, you know, Corporate Affairs Commission, or even if it's NAFDAC or maybe Standards Organization of Nigeria, because that, all those sort of help build credibility and help towards the financing decision for an SME. Then I spoke earlier also about loan purpose, being able to articulate it. And I also go back to the earlier points that have been raised by some of my colleagues here, and even the equity guy. And you talked about dragons, then you talked about Shark Tank. If you look at some of the equity, if you look at some of the entrepreneurs that make their presentations in those programs, they're able to articulate the need, the purpose, and that's what sells it. And that's why there's some level of confidence in actually investing in those businesses that are there. So the SMEs themselves have to be able to also demonstrate that, like I said earlier, some positive cash flow. And like I said, I don't like using that jargon, because when I'm talking to SMEs, it's just telling them basically, whatever we put into the business needs to generate enough return to be able to pay back what has gone in. That is a positive cash flow. If you're able to demonstrate that either with track record from the past businesses you have done, it makes the decision around lending very easy. So these are some of the important things that businesses need to sort of identify. And when they identify, they're able to address them. And when they're able to address them, present their cases to the loan or to the bank that is trying to make a decision around that financing. It definitely goes a long way. And then most of the work would already be done in terms of the decisioning process for that funding. Thanks,
Fantastic. Fantastic, Caroline. I like the way you basically just, you know, laid this out. And that basically just brought a question to my mind. And I think, you know, you've also been an SME owner, we sort of, there's really no perfect environment. Sometimes your business can stumble. You've seen COVID-19 and how that has impacted on a lot of businesses. You could just be going through some very bad market patch. Maybe there's a big competitor in town and that has maybe affected your cash flow. And at the end of the day, cash flow compatibility is very important. So your inflow has got to be at least higher than your outflow. And when SMEs meet roadblocks like this or challenges like this, I know that banks, at least I've also collected loans from banks before. I know that banks sometimes can refinance your loans or restructure your loans. I think it's restructure. They can restructure your loans when they see that you have challenges. So, but what do you need to convince a bank? Like, what do I need to convince you when I'm going through a bad patch so that you can restructure the loan? Because restructuring basically means extending the months that I need to pay, or maybe giving me some moratorium on principal, just giving me that bit of headroom. But what do I need to do to convince you?
Okay, you have to understand that it's not in the interest of any bank that any SME should fail. So as much as possible, the banks want to work with their clients and help them deliver whatever commitments that they have made. So across the life cycle of the loan, the banks and the customers are working very closely together. When you see there's a challenge along the way, it's very important that you quickly alert the bank. And when you quickly alert the bank as to what the challenge is and what we can potentially do together to help you out of the situation, the bank would always be willing to listen. The COVID-19 situation is a typical example. And I can tell you right now, even outside the intervention of the central bank, many banks are working with most SMEs to restructure their loans and give them what you call a moratorium. A moratorium is like a repayment holiday. So you don't need to pay for a while until you begin to sell again, because most SMEs have actually closed shops around this period. So for the period of closed shops, most banks actually suspend the need for them to repay the loans and then give them some time out. When they now open shops and start selling again is when they start repaying the loans. But outside that, even the central bank has provided some sort of level of intervention funds during this period to help SMEs, because they do understand that a lot of SMEs are struggling. So they have the healthcare intervention fund that they have. They also have, well, they have some other real sector finance funds, which they are typically helping around this period. So between banks and the central bank, within the period you're struggling, number one, they can give you a repayment holiday. They can reduce your interest rate, like we've done for most SMEs around this period. Most of the rates have been crashed, just to ensure that we support as best as possible through this difficult period and make sure that at the end of the day, you're able to sort of fulfill your obligation. Please don't forget that banks are obliged to the depositors, who they take money from, to give you money. So if you default and they're not able to pay back those depositors, is a challenge. So it's in the best interest of the banks to help you through this period, see you through, make sure that you can conveniently repay the facility so that they to the banks too can repay the depositors that have given them the money to lend to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Moderator. I like the way you also you helped me segue into the next section of this program. You mentioned CBN intervention funds as one of those funds that SMEs can tap into. But I know SMEs that are listening in here are also now saying, oh yeah, we've heard all the explanations, or all the how can I do it, or how I can access these loans. But oh yeah, where is the product? Where are those loans? So I think that's what I'm gonna stick to right now. Starting with you, and then I'll go to Mr. Shekara and then Chidi as well. But starting with you, for Ecobank now, we're talking about Ecobank. Are there specific targeted SME loans that are available? If there are, which ones would you advise or would you suggest to the participant here today to apply?
Absolutely. There are, several funding opportunities, several. And I'll probably, put them in about 3 categories. There's one, I'll probably say normal business loans, which I'll probably explain, how you can be able to get access to that. There are trade solutions, and also explain that. And then we also facilitate access to all these intervention loans. So CBN, for instance, and we also work very closely with BOI. Mr. Shekara had actually mentioned that earlier. So we're able to actually facilitate some of these for you to actually benefit from. Now for business loans in Ecobank, we do what you call inventory finance. We help businesses acquire stock. Then there's distributor finance, where we can support you if you sell goods for major companies. So if you sell airtime, for instance, for MTN, we can support you. We do asset finance. So asset finance, we can help you to acquire an asset so that you can use in your business. We do agri-finance. That agri-finance, you're a farmer, you need to plant and supply or sell to the open market. We do invoice discounting. So where you are probably made a supply job to a big company and you're waiting to get paid, we can help you discount the invoice. Or if you're a trader selling fast moving goods and use our payment platforms, our POS and QR codes, we can also fund your business. Then for trade loans, we facilitate onshore and offshore trade through export finance and import finance, bonds and guarantees. So if you get a supply job from a company and they come and tell you, no, you have to give us a bond or a guarantee or something, we help you with that. Then last but not the least is the entire intervention program that I talked about earlier. So we can facilitate access to some of those funds from the central bank. And in terms of utilization, if I look at it across, as far as SME are aware that some of these financing, tools or financing platforms are actually available, then they're able to get access to it. I think some of the challenges that we face is that many SMEs just don't know how to get money, or they don't know how to actually access some of this financing. But once they have that knowledge and they know the different types, and they are properly able to present a case for funding with proof that they can generate a good return, have the necessary experience, then I'll tell you more than half the work is actually done. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I like the way I like some of the things that you said here already. Inventory finance seems quite interesting. Asset finance is also very interesting. So, that's Ecobank for you. We're going to be going to the Q&A as well. So, just hold on, guys. Don't worry. This is your show. We're going to give you the Q&A as well. But let's just get to, the funding that they need, because I think some of you might want to have follow-up questions on that. I'm going to move now to, Shakara. You've heard what the kind of funding Ecobank says they have for SMEs. So for BOI, I know there's so many. I mean, I can't even speak for you, but it's important to hear from you as well. What are those specific funding opportunities that currently exist at the BOI for SMEs? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's still morning. Good morning once again. It's a very nice question, and I'm happy to answer this because we're talking to Nigerians that are in need of funding. But one thing we need to clarify, which is very important and key for the SMEs, is that our own funding is long-term funding. So if you are establishing a processing factory or whatever, it's important for you to know that. Come to BOI and get all the funding for machinery. You can return to your commercial bank and get a working capital, because we have such an interesting partnership with the commercial banks that we know that their funds are usually restricted funds. It's funds from you and I, okay? But our own funding is designed in such a way that will provide you with long-term funding, get your machinery, and you pay the loan in 5, 6, or sometimes even 7 years. So it's important for them to know, if you have your own funds, keep it and use it as working capital to buy your raw materials. But don't use your funds, or don't go to bank to collect funds to buy machinery that you know is usually on a high side, and this is a loan that you have to pay within 1 year. I would rather suggest that you go to a bank that will give you funding that you pay over a period of 5, 6, 7 years, especially for machinery. Now back to the question, what funds do we have? Well, let me start with the simplest and the most important, because somehow we all belong to states. We are in a relationship with 24 state governments under what we call managed or matching funds. It's very simple. A state government will decide to bring 500 million and will match that 500 million with the same amount. The state, our loans are usually 10%. The state government will say, well, since you are giving loans to my SMEs, we don't want to charge them any interest. That automatically crashes the interest rate to 5%. In some cases, they also will say, listen, we have a particular sector that is challenged. We want you to take 100% of our funds to give to SMEs that are in this challenged area, and let's see how we can encourage them. If out of 10, 7 or 6 become successful, we are satisfied. So 24 states of the Federation are in this relationship with us. Let me give you an example. In the last 3 months, COVID-19 period, in a particular state, we disbursed 994 million to SMEs. 75% of the 994 that we've disbursed are between 2 million, 1.5 million. So you can see the impact. And this was done within 3 months, 994 million disbursed. Now, it's important for SMEs to know that their state governments are into this partnership. But the problems we have with a lot of them is that when they go for these funds, they assume that, oh, it's part of their cake from their state governments. They don't want to pay. So some of the state governments have on their own decided to suspend the operations of this. So people have to be honest with themselves that I'm taking this loan to return it so that my brother or my sister or my neighbor who is also in a good business can take. But if we all take and assume that, oh, we are not going to return it because 50% of these funds belong to my state government, then you are not helping matters. There's also funds from Dangote Foundation, 5 billion naira to help people. And Dangote says, don't charge interest. So that also has crushed the interest to 5%. And it's across the country. Although we don't finance trading, but with Dangote Funds has allowed that you can finance locally produced goods, which is for SMEs. There's the MTN fund. We are talking about MTN today. We are about disbursing over 100 million to identified people, SMEs that are in their need. And this is from MTN. So there are other organizations that have these funds with us. But like I said, people need to understand how these funds work. People need to know that, yes, these funds exist. For them, you need to have the knowledge to know that these funds are there. There's also, in addition to that, we have what we call all lending with commercial banks, like Carol's Bank, you know, and a lot of microfinance banks across the country, because we know they have the reach, they have the customers. And we came together and agreed, listen, it's a national service, okay? Carol banks will say, okay, Carol's Bank, with due respect, will say, we will not charge them this much. Bring funding specifically for SMEs at so-so rate, and we'll give them at so-so rate. At the end of the day, we'll even give you the list of the SMEs that have benefited from these funds. You can go and verify. So we're in this relationship with a number of commercial banks and a number of microfinance banks, just to make sure that where we are unable to reach, there are banks that can reach them and they can go to them. Remember, majority of our customers are from commercial banks. They have been banking with them, so they know them better. So we believe that if we give funds and they now give on our behalf, it is easier, especially looking at a country that is this big, this is large, with such a population. The other funds that we also do, we do the ESP, which is the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, where young people are given maximum of 2 million. A lot of these young people don't need more than 2 million, right? Come and take this loan for a period of 3 years, and this is it. We also have the JIP, which is for Graduate Entrepreneurship Scheme. It is for NYSC members that are about finishing. When you go into the camp, we come and give you capacity building. We do a lot. We use a lot of consulting firms to do that. And those of them that have that mind of becoming entrepreneurs will now key in. The only collateral required is your NYSC certificate, because it's a partnership between us and NYSC. Take this amount, leave your certificate with NYSC. When you pay, you go and collect your certificate from NYSC. So there are a lot of programs that we have. Like I said, matching funds, managed funds, and then you can walk in to BOI's office anywhere. You know, you can talk to our BDSPs. We have over 300 of them across the country that will help you package your loan. And at the end of the day, probably in most cases, you pay 10,000, 20,000, right? But when your project is approved and we pay the BDSP as a bank, we say, thank you for helping this young entrepreneur. When we disburse, we say, thank you again that we have disbursed to this entrepreneur. All these are efforts to make sure that SMEs are encouraged. But finally, let me say this. It's important for us to understand that getting this funding requires discipline, requires excellent management, because that is what is killing a lot of these SMEs. You take the funds, the first thing is in your mind is, what personal thing do I have to do now? I have 5 million in my account. Instead of focusing on your project, you are now diverting the funds into something else. So there must be a good team to manage the funds, to manage your processes and procedures, and to make sure that these funds come back. Nobody is interested in realizing your collateral, no. What we want is for your business to be able to pay the loan. So that is why you need a good management team that will manage, even if it's just you and your sister. Go and join a team that will give you the capacity that is required to manage this business. And that is why we're engaged in a lot of capacity building with some state governments, with Lagos Business School, with a lot of EDCs, and even with commercial banks. We jointly finance capacity building for them to understand. If they are listening, let me give you last one.
All right, sir. We are running out of time.
The National Economic Sustainability Scheme that the government has agreed to do to help SMEs, MSMEs. It's at the last stage. Very soon, adverts and other things will be coming out to tell them what and what. It's important for them to listen and to take benefit of this. There is the guaranteed offtake that will identify SMEs that are producing what, pay them to produce, and the government will take. So you have a guaranteed market. The government will pay you to produce, and the government will take to give. There are also those that are struggling, and instead of allowing them to close down completely and send the workers home, the government has also come up with a plan to assist them with some grants so that they remain in business for a while. I had mentioned earlier on, it's important for us to have information. It's important for us to listen and to follow what happens within our environment, because Nigeria has a large population. The funds will not go around everybody, but it's going to be those that are interested and are able to have access will benefit from it. With this, I can comfortably say that our doors are open. We were 4 years back, or 5, we were in 7 locations. Today, we are in 27 locations, because we believe that for you to service the SMEs properly, you need to get very close to them. To give you one example, in Northeast, until—
So we're running out of time. We're running out of time, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, finally, we are close to them. Okay.
There are questions for you, sir, on the platform. In fact, if I may just quickly ask you one before I move to Chidi.
Okay.
There's one that I think is pretty interesting. Just hang on a second, sir. This person says that he wants, went to get a loan and he was asked for a collateral. And he said that he had an uncompleted building, and then they asked him to go back to go and complete the building. I think the name is Anton Naji. Is that, because I heard you say now that, look, you guys have now even said, look, just get us a guarantor. So you want to address this directly, quickly?
Yeah, probably what the man has been looking for is over 10 million naira. Okay? If you are looking for anything above 10 million naira, then you have to find a way to secure this loan. But if what he's looking for, because there's a gap knowledge usually, somebody comes to you, I want 5 million, 7 million, and I have my grandfather's house in Surulere to give you. You actually don't need to bring that house, okay? And the second thing is, if he needs much more than 10 million, and what he has brought to us was an incomplete building, what is the value of that? Because you have to be fair to the system as well. If everybody comes with a building that is not ready and he takes loan, and at the end of the day, you are unable to, the person is unable to pay that loan, and you put that property in the market, which is the last option to sell. And for a loan of 25, 30 million, the value you have is 4 million naira. Where are you going to? We have to remain in business to continue to help the SMEs. And by doing that, we'll be happily creating impact within the society, but not negatively. So I think he should go back and look at what is it that he wants? What does he want the funds for? Because sometimes you come with a request of 100 million. After sitting with us, we realize that, listen, you really don't need 100 million. And the person will tell you that what I need actually is 25 million. I didn't know about this. So there's a gap. We need to talk to ourselves. We need to sit down. And that is why, in addition to the bank, we also have entered into partnership with BDSPs. They are in almost every local government. You'll find experts that can help you. When you come with 100 million request, they will tell you, no, look at it. Let's start with 25 million. After 2-3 years, you can upscale. And eventually, the 100 million you're looking for, within few years, you would have taken more than 100 million. So we need to have knowledge as to what we want. But for the gentleman that said he came, and we said, go and complete your building, we need to look at what is it that he wants to do. After all, there are buildings that you can't roof them until when the machinery is available. Otherwise, you will end up breaking. So we need to understand what he wants, really, and see why we are saying to him, go and complete it. Hope I've answered.
Thank you very much, sir. So I'm going to go to you now, Chidi. I mean, you've heard from BOI already. One important thing that he said that I took here is if you're looking for long-term funding, they are the ones that you want to go to. And I think you actually set the tone for that when you basically talked about short-term funds and working capital. So, but from a Union Bank perspective, there's one question I have for you here, but let me allow you, first of all, tell us what are those specific loans that Union Bank has for SMEs today that the guys here can apply to?
Okay, thanks, Ugo. In the working capital space, we have quite a lot, from the LPO financing, the short-term contract financing, distributor finance, vendor financing, all of them, bonds and guarantees and the like. But particularly, just to mention here, we've been, for the last 2 years or thereabout, we've been issuing letters of credit in Naira. So the local LC that's helped SMEs to kind of secure long-term supply contracts or service contracts, gives them some kind of working capital relief, saves a bit of some days interest, and all the rest of it is something that it's very exciting, because there's a misunderstanding. People think that LCs are only for Forms M and therefore for imports, but no, it's for services, it's for products, it's for offshore, it's for onshore. We use it for all of them. And we also do asset financing, maximum tenor 48 months. But here, just to be very clear, the asset needs to be very easy to establish the value of the asset, so we know what exactly we are getting into. It needs to be very easy to determine what cash the asset is going to generate, and out of it, what will be needed for operation, because we can't come and collect all the money and repay the loan and then you can't pay salaries. So the asset should be valuable, and it should be able to generate cash enough to support operations and to repay the loan. Depending on all of that, we can do tenors, not exceeding 48 months. Then for the structured SMEs, because SMEs, the medium, the high-end SMEs, we do quite a bit of structured lending, where we sit with them, provide some kind of advisory, and determine exactly what is best for the situation they are in. We do that. We do intervention loans, all the intervention loans from BOI to CBN. We support people to get that, particularly the long-term loans. We do agric, like you said at the beginning. I mean, we've been in agric for decades. And then the last thing I would say, which is of interest, is we also have a proposition, a loan proposition, a banking proposition as a whole for women SMEs. So for the women SMEs here, it's the Alpha proposition. It's a collaboration we went into with OPIC of the United States. They can go to alphawoman.com and get on the platform, and we'll pick things up from there. But it's a lot of it's got a lot to do with capacity building, loan support, training, development, providing network access to new markets, and all the rest of it. So we do all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chidi, for that. But I'm going to stay with you, though, before I get to E. There are loads of questions for you here. In fact, I think I'm going to have to leave my own questions and take questions here for E. Also, Carol, you got a lot of questions. Mr. Shekarao, a lot of questions for you on the platform. You might want to just go there and start answering some of them directly. I've actually been answering some questions myself. This is very, very engaging session. Over 400 questions already on this platform. Incredible. But Chidi, staying with you. So somebody says here, this is Nabuike Ogochukwu Kanife. He says, if as agribusiness entrepreneur who has borrowed money from banks to do farming business, and eventually I have a disaster like maybe rainfall, fire outbreak, not my fault. I know we can't answer this question though, but in such case, what will your bank do? Are they going to give you insurance? That's what the person is asking.
Well, I know that there's, we are not there yet where we have everything we need in the agri space, both for people who do agri and for banks. But I know that today we have insurance cover for things like, that cover things like yield, that cover things like, how the crop will perform and all the rest of it. But in general terms, there is hardly, we are not where, we can cover everything, including force majeure. So where there's force majeure, there's nothing anybody can do. We have to smart up, pick up our tools and start working again. But yes, in that space, there are some insurance that cover specific risks. Yes, for agri, and they are available.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chidi. Somebody was asking here, what is BOI? You see, Mr. Shekara was saying that you gotta have information. So if you don't even know what BOI means, how are you gonna get loans? So you gotta be able to understand. Well, anyway, BOI is Bank of Industry, so you gotta be able to know all these things. I've got loads of questions for you here. You're gonna help me, please, because we're going out of time. So respond to them as succinctly and as quickly as you can, so that the guys there can get value. It's not every time we get to see a big masquerade like you, on platforms like this. So the first one for you is, somebody says you should elaborate more on patent rights. Please don't elaborate too much. Make it pretty short. Now, the next one, I hope you're taking notes. The next one for you is, what would be the ideal benchmark? And this is from Toyo. Sorry, the first one was from Pungin Bayan. That was the name. This other one is from Toyo. Toyo says, what would be the ideal benchmark for equity funding? What percentage should you retain? Should I give you 80% and I keep 20, or do I give you 20 and I keep 80? So that's what this person wants to know. And then Hawa here is saying, Mr. do you have specific industries which your equity funds invest in? And at what stage of the company's cycle does your fund invest in? I think you can address that a bit. So quickly, I have some questions for Moderator as well, and then for Carol that we're going to take, and then we'll close. So quickly, and I think there are also polls, by the way. Sorry, there are polls. Some polls are going to come up very soon. So please, be on standby for that. Go ahead, Ian. Okay.
So in terms of IP, ultimately the way IP works is you've invented some new process, or you've invented some new way or some new hardware for doing things, and then you want to document it so that it becomes part of your IP. Or you have a brand that's popular or not even popular, but you want to push. Basically, you have to go to the patent office and patent and trademarks office. There's one in Nigeria. If you work with a lawyer, they can direct you appropriately, and you document that and file appropriately. Nigeria is a party to a number of world IPO agreement. So filing in Nigeria does provide you some limited guarantee that the patent will be respected the world over. And then if the goal of doing that is, one, large companies like to buy those. They like to buy those IP, especially when they want to come and do similar businesses in Nigeria or even around the world. The second thing is basically it's it's good for your portfolio. If somebody else tries your idea and you have the funds, you can always sell the rights for somebody to go after them in exchange for some of the settlement proceeds. So it's very important. My general suggestion is to try as much as possible to see to registering the rights, say here in Nigeria and also in London, so that they're extremely valuable and can be defended in jurisdictions that are known to be defenders of intellectual property. Benchmark for equity investment. The rule of thumb, at least in my business, a standard deal is $50,000 for 10%. That's just when you're getting started. But what I always tell businesses is it's really a function of three things. The first is, how much do you need to get to the next milestone for your business? The second thing is how much, what do you want to own afterwards? Typically, the general advice is not to sell more than 30% of your company, for that funding, for that first seed funding. Otherwise you might very quickly end up in a minority position before your business matures. Ultimately, you will go to a minority position at some point, especially if you plan to be a growth company. But in the first round, you should be 20 to 30% is kind of what's appropriate. And then it's good for you to look at what will get you to the next milestone. Not what you need for the entire business, but what you need to just get to the next serious milestone. And then specific industries at the Fund for Africa's Future, where I work, we focus on a number of industries. So technology and talent, digital and physical infrastructure, media and entertainment, and the environment and agriculture. So those are like the four areas, and we'd like to invest in data and IP plays in those particular spaces. We might do one or two things that involve, cash flow businesses or trading businesses, but more likely to do that as a platform that's, rather than directly. So we would support, say, a digital bank that supports SMEs. You might see us do some plays there, but we're likely to do just support like one retail outlet or something like that. Typically not our play. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Inye. I like that. I want to emphasize what you said there, $50,000 for 10%. If you take your calculator and you want to do the math, what he's basically telling you is that your business has to be worth at least $500,000. In today's Naira, that's almost 200 million Naira. So you got to show him, and his partners that your business is worth that much. So when you say you're looking for money from investors, be ready. It's not just some idea that you just get out the plug from the air. You got to have a business that can show them that is that valuable. Before I get to Carol, let me get to Moderator first. I think this question will go to you. I like the neutrality of this question. So, are you there? Are you there, Moderator?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So this person says that while seeking grants and loans and perhaps equity, I want to throw that in. At what stage do we make a decision to relinquish sole control of your business? You just said now, don't go beyond 30%, but you're CFO and you're going to be advising, you've been advising CEOs and owners of companies for years. So, if somebody comes to you and says, man, when should I just cede control? What would you tell them? And this question is from Henry Ogu, by the way. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Well, what I'll just say is simple. I said at the onset, I did say you should define clearly what you want out of your business and personal goals. And also goes down to who your partner is. Now, ultimately, I think everybody will agree that the purpose of setting up a business is to make money at some point. I mean, basically, you want a return on your investment. So if you are a shareholder or a stakeholder, my question to you is, would you prefer 1% of a trillion, or you want 90% of 100,000 or one? So that's the concept along at what point you, so depending on how your business scales. So just imagine if you are a Facebook and then somebody tells you you have 0.05% of it, would you complain? I don't think you would, because that's of the sheer scale of the business. So I think back to his point, I think it's also a function of how you set up your business. If it has achieved your immediate goals and you want to go on to pivot to do other things, then you probably need to, sell down and, use your creativity elsewhere. So I wouldn't say there's any rule of thumb. I think it's down to you. Some just want control, but control may not necessarily give you the scale that you need to move to the next level. So if you look at most successful multinationals, at some point, most of the original founders have sold down, and nobody has a major controlling interest. So it's down to your vision, how you see it, and the more you have people who are prepared to buy into that vision at the right price, I think that will be the point where you should exit and get your freedom back, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moderator. I mean, I like that because, like someone says, do you want to own 80% of nothing or 20% of something? So it's not really about how much equity you own in the business. It's really how much control you can have, and control sometimes is not about percentages. It's about your personality, and if investors know that, look, without you, this business can grow. It doesn't really matter how much percentage ownership you have. People like Steve Jobs have been pushed out of business, out of the business that they found before, and then they've come back again to reclaim that business. So at the end of the day, just invest in yourself. Make sure that you really understand that business, and then your investors have confidence in you. I'm going to come to you now, Carl. Can you hear me, Carl? I'm a digital marketer and brand influencer, right? Basically, the link between, this is from Edward, the link between the customer and business owners. So I'm basically the link between customers and business owners. Is there any possibility of getting loans, SME loans? So this is a digital marketer and a brand influencer. Interesting. Now, the second one for you, Carol, and by the way, Chidi, I saw you smiling here. So if you've got an input on this question, please feel free to come in. The second one for you, Carol, is from Toby. Toby says, I love the inventory finance loans from Ecobank. Kindly help address if this loan is available to a new customer of the bank, especially if I haven't had my account there for several months. So I'm just a new customer, but I like the fact that you found inventory. So is it possible that this person, Toby, can access this loan? So, Carol.
All right. For the digital marketing person who is also a brand influencer, I'm sure you would have heard about the Central Bank Creative Industry Finance Loan. It actually caters for individuals or companies or SMEs within the creative industry, and typically are able to extend loans of between 3 to 10 years. Now, we need to actually look at your particular case to determine if you do qualify. So it's not something one can actually easily give an answer straight away. So we need to look at your case, and as you have heard a number of us speak earlier, how you present your case, how you articulate the loan purpose, and be able to justify that that business will be able to generate sufficient return to pay back that loan. Under such a scenario, there is a likelihood that you'll be considered for the creative industry finance loan. So there are financing, tools or instruments that definitely can be used for, such industry. So that's the first question. The second one is on inventory finance, whether a new customer can get access to an inventory finance case, an inventory finance loan. Again, we have to look at your own specific need And it's a case-by-case issue. It's not a question of whether it's a new customer or an old customer. For a new customer, once there is track record, so you have bank statements in other banks, you're a registered company, you're able to demonstrate, you understand, that you've been in existence or something like that. If you're able to build credibility around the fact that you are a solid SME and you want, financing to be able to restock, that is an easy sell. So it's not a question of whether you're new or old. What counts is your structure, your loan purpose, your cash flow, credit history, and a few other things that I had mentioned earlier. All those things count. Leave the issue of whether you're a new or an old customer. I think we need to move away from that on, because typically a lot of people say that once I get into a bank in the first instance, nobody wants to deal with me because I have not been banking with that institution for a while. However, it's how you present your case that determines whether you will get the loan in the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, for that succinct answer. Chidi, I'm sure you have something to chip in here, but while you're looking for how to respond to that, or while you're looking to respond to that question, let me also ask you this one. Somebody else, this Saka says, how is the BOI and the banks able to support civil servants who may want to transit to business and self-empowerment, but do not have to use but do not have savings that they can use as collateral? Chidi.
Is that for me? Okay.
Yes.
For a civil servant who wants to start a business, for me, it sounds like that is the beginning, it's at the birth stage of the business, right? And there's no track record. And generally, it's a struggle to get a bank to finance an idea because you don't have a track record. It's the same thing everybody has been saying. My advice is, if you're working, whether you're in civil service or just working like all of us, if you want to start a business, one of the commitments you can show to everybody is that you have to save towards starting that business. You start up the business, no matter how small it is. I think it's important we learn to be a bit patient, to experiment, get feedback, see what scaling opportunities there are before we start scaling and all the rest of it. So, but what we tend to see is that people want to start big initially. Immediately they want to start big, but save what you can, start the business, no matter how small it is, learn, experiment, be known, get feedback, and then tweak it as much as you can before you scale. That would be my advice.
Thank you very much, Chidi, for that advice. I'm going to come quickly to Mr. Shekau. You have so many questions for you, sir. I hope that the guys at the back end, at the admin, are collating these questions. Amazing questions for you. But I'm just going to take this simple one that I think you can answer quickly. Hawa here says, does BOI have zero interest loans? I'm very interested in that question too. Does BOI have zero interest loans? Mr. Shekau.
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you very much. But before I answer that, can I make a small comment on the last question answered by my brother Chidi, whether civil servants can benefit? This is where we say, knowing what your state governments are doing in terms of the partnership with BOI is also important. There are state governments that are in partnership with Bank of Industry that have agreed that because for a civil servant, what you're allowed to do in terms of business is agri. So you can add value to whatever you are producing, so long as it's within that value chain, you are allowed by the Constitution. So what the state governments have done is to say, we are setting aside this amount of money for our civil servants. These are the conditions. They will take the loans. If you want to do a small rice mill, for example, okay, you will take the loan. Repayment will be coming from your salary at the end of every month, and they will calculate to see when are you likely to retire, all things being equal. And based on that, a loan is granted to the civil servants. So like I said, we need to understand what our state governments are doing. We need to have information. Now back to the question, interest loans, zero interest, yes. Two things. One, there are specific products that we charge zero interest, like the Graduate Entrepreneurship Fund. that we do with NYSC is interest-free. And that is why I said collateral-free, in the sense that your collateral is only your NYSC certificate. We are also in partnership with the likes of Jaiz Bank, where last year we gave Jaiz Bank 3 billion naira because we know there are Nigerians that are interested in taking loans that are interest-free. And they will work it out in line with their processes and procedures. And people have been having access to those funds. Other than this, what we can say that we have loans that have very low interest rate, in the sense that if you look at the likes of Dangote funds, BOI loans are 10%. But Dangote said, I'm bringing 2.5 billion. BOI, bring another 2.5 billion. Give to Nigerians this 5 billion. I don't want to charge interest on mine, okay? Charge them your own interest. And that has automatically crushed the interest rate to 5%. So this is what we have at the moment. And I know there's another bank, Taj Bank. We're also in discussions with them. So there are ways that we can make it easy for people, right? For example, during this COVID-19, apart from restructuring the loans, we also crash our interest rates by 2%. So if a loan was on 10%, for example, we've crashed it to 8% for a year, so that it makes it easy for the people, you know? And therefore, these are some of the palliatives we've been able to do. But I think for an economy like Nigeria, it is interesting that people are asking if you have this kind of loans that are charging zero interest rate, because we need to understand that the competition is beyond the locality of Nigeria. It goes more than that. And therefore, we have to be objective in having access to the loans. There are over 40 million MSMEs in Nigeria. The funds that we have and a few other institutions, including the commercial banks, cannot go around even all the SMEs. So you must be able to put your own, you know, you have to be part of the game to be able to be successful. That is why we are saying, what is your contribution? Because if you do not contribute, chances are you will not be serious about this business. So if you know, at the end of the day, you must repay this loan, and there's a small interest, because we have people that will serve you, okay? We have a system. Now, I can approve 10 million naira from my phone. It goes through the system, and it will come to me. Anything 10 million, the chief risk officer and the ED will approve. And it goes to operations to pay you. And therefore, the system is always being modernized to serve you well. Now, if we continue to operate at a level that we can't generate anything, I can tell you that within a few years, this bank will be dead. BOI is 60 years old from NID. Thank you, sir.
Very important, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I mean, this has been an amazing 2 hours for me. I don't know about for you. I've been doing a lot of other sessions in the past. I've also hosted mine, but this has been one session that I've really learned a whole lot. And I know that we're stressed for time, but I'm not going to go without asking Ian one last question. Ian, this is to you. And I think that it's important for a lot of the guys listening, especially SMEs that have sort of skill to that medium side. Is there a network or an association or a place where founders can actually meet venture capital firms or investors like you? Is there a way because I mean, if you want to raise money from equity, you go to the equities market. If you want a loan, you know these banks you go to. If you want bonds, you go to FMDQ or NSE. But if you want, your kind of finance, startup finance or series finance, where can they go to in? Can you provide us any guidance?
Well, I think that's a challenge for my industry because there are many solutions. We haven't seen one work to bridge some of the gaps like trust, So we're still working on a couple. But right now, I'll tell you what my firm, because I can't speak for everybody in the industry, but for my firm, if you go to www.future.africa/collective, you're going to be able to see a place that says, tell me about your startup. And then that's where we would be able to interact with you. So many other firms like Microtraction, like another company called, what's the name of Maya's company? Ingressive.com. They also provide open applications on their website. There's some other institutions like VCforAfrica.com where you can fill out a profile, but it's not really been seen to be as effective. There's some global platforms like AngelList.com where you can also list out your business, but they're mostly focused on businesses in the US and Europe. So that's a challenge for my industry. We still don't have an effective way to get to know all the amazing companies out there, but we're working on it.
Fantastic, Ian. Thank you so much. In fact, if you're an SME, you listen to that. You see, when there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. So if you can fill that gap for him, I'm sure that he won't mind. So perhaps, I know you very well. If you're a sharp guy, have a sharp idea, you wouldn't waste time. He's going to put that seed in you. It's been an amazing session for our panelists. Thank you so much, everybody. Let me start by thanking Carol. Thank you so much. You gave me enough nuggets, a whole lot of stuff here, and I think it's invaluable for a lot of people. Chidi, thank you so much as well. Thank you for all that advice and all that information you shared. Mr. Shekarau, thank you so much. Amazing stuff you're doing with the BOI. You said it right there. People should get more information. Information, I think, is one of the biggest problems you've identified here. And a lot of us should get a lot more information. And then to me, amazing stuff. You're always reliable. Anytime I have you on any session, you've always thrown very good nuggets. And it's incredible how you give out these things for free. Basically, you just give people advice, and you've been doing this for years. A lot of people, I've known him for a while, and he's always been there for startups. And then Modipe, you're like the host here, so thank you so much for the neutrality, for the advice, for the important information that you set up here. You're a CFO of basically one of the biggest, companies in Nigeria. So, I mean, you've been able to, we've been able to hear from you, give us this advice for free, and very easy and soft-spoken, clear, no too much jargon. Was amazing for all of us. And for the guys at MTN who put this together, the Revv program team, you guys are all amazing. This was an engaging session. And last but not to least, our participants. You guys stayed all through. I was checking. We had like 47 people here, 475 people or so, almost 500, and they stayed all through, because typically what happens is that they stay and then they now leave. So thank you so much, everybody in the panelists. And of course, I won't forget Lydia. I'm sure you're there somewhere, hanging in there somewhere. Thank you so much for organizing this session. Goodbye, everybody. And please stay safe and be profitable. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.